No, baby, no. I'm not trying to be in them trenches with you. No, no. I'm trying to stay out the trenches. I want to be there to help you get out of the trenches. I'm standing up top. I'm gonna say, hey, baby, get that ladder, do this, but I ain't trying to get down in the trenches with you. Now what? And why do you want me there? Let's talk. Can we talk about that? Why do you want me in the trenches with you? I don't think that's an appropriate place for me at all. I don't.
These are dream rules. This is someone else. I'm not myself. No, no.
Hi, thank you so much for clicking on my channel. If you are new here, I hope you'll consider me to be one of your new friends, and maybe through videos and chatting, I can become one of your good friends. And if you're one of my good friends who's been around for a while, thank you so much for coming by to check on me, girl. I wanted to talk a little bit about what I figured out and learned and picked up along the way from life experiences and mistakes and all of that stuff about dating. I alluded to it in a video before, and now I just kind of want to touch base on the 4 things that I've come up with that I'm really looking for, and maybe these are some things that you can chime in on as well. For those of you who may not know, I just finalized my divorce last year, and so I'm kind of dipping a toe into the dating world, and I'm not gonna kid you, it's a little bit scary. Like some of the conversations that I see happening back and forth, and I ain't never seen stuff like this before. It's a little unnerving. So I feel like it just makes me hold on even more to my non-negotiables and things like that. But also, I've been married most of my adult life, and so I've come across coworkers and friends and people who are like, oh, I know this great guy. Oh, I know oh, you're gonna love him. But for my friends who are watching and have those ideas, please pay attention, because these are some of the things I want to. And I just think in general, these are things that'll help women. So if you're not familiar with me, I'm one of those people, I kind of start making a point. I might veer off a little bit. I'm a bit of a storyteller, and always I'm going to put my opinions in here. So these are definitely my opinions, and if this sounds like something you're interested in, stick around and then let me know some of your opinions as well. All right, so my acronym for what I'm looking for in men is GEAR, G-E-A-R. And I'm sure, as you can imagine, the first letter, the G, stands for God. And I'm not a person who needs my partner to know the Bible line and verse. I don't know the Bible line and verse. So no, I need him to be more spiritually based. I need him to absolutely be someone who submits to God. That is the greatest key of it all. For me, a man who doesn't submit to God is a man who is likely living by his own rules. You know what I mean? Like he's a person who is just kind of winging it and figuring it out, like I said, by his own rules. And if he's living by his own rules, who's to say that the rules he has in mind for himself, or the rules for that matter that he has in mind for me, really are rules that are fair to me? You know what I mean? Like, this is a guy who, more times than not, if he is not submitted to God, is someone who doesn't feel that he has anyone to answer to. So if you're having issues and problems and you're like, hey, maybe we need to talk to a counselor, a therapist, a minister, he is not someone who's going to want to do that. I just feel like a person who isn't submitted to God isn't going to be open to suggestions. He's not going to be willing to listen to that therapist, counselor, minister, or even you, or in this case, me, for that matter, because why would he? He's already the superior being. He's got everything figured out. He ain't got to submit to anyone. You know what I mean? So with that kind of a mindset, this fella probably ain't even willing to listen to his own mama. You know, he's just out there. More times than not, I have found that men who also don't submit to God end up apologizing for the same thing over and over again. Like if you're in a pattern where you're with someone who's repeatedly apologizing about the same thing, chances are, I mean, he may use the language, but he's going to apologize over and over. But why is he doing that? He's doing it because that's what you want to hear. It's kind of a, okay, here you go, here's an apology and all of that. But does he really think he's wrong? No. How could he? He's his own God. Okay, so The E for me is for emotional maturity. Any man I'm with, he's just going to have to possess that. This isn't something that I'm really able to work with or see the potential in and, kind of pull it out of him. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that a lot of times men have trouble communicating effectively. I can work with someone on that, but I need you to have the maturity to understand that, hey, this communication actually does need to happen. That means you're not walking off, you're not gaslighting me, you're not doing all those other things to put a block on that communication. A lot of times we as women, we talk a thing out, we think we've handled it, hashed it out, done all that. And in reality, we've kind of built a sense of resentment. And I've heard this from some of my guy friends, and it's been my experience that sometimes these men weaponize their bodies, and that can come out in the form of yelling, over talking me, things like that, being dominant in that way. But it's also come out in the way of cheating sometimes. So I'm sitting here thinking, oh, we really hashed this out or whatever, and he's found a different kind of way to humble me, so to speak. And how do I know that? Because we ended up talking about it after we were breaking up. The truth being what it is, it always wants to come out. And so once that comes out, for me, the relationship is just done. That's another one of my non-negotiables, but it's still tied under emotional maturity. But we've talked it out, and it's like, I was just mad about whatever, and that was just my way. I was feeling like whatever, and that was just my way of expressing that. That's crazy to me. That's so immature. Because in reality, that just creates another problem. So whereas we had one problem that I thought we talked out, now you went out here and cheated and created another problem. But it's not a problem for long for me. So another part of that emotional maturity is also going to be, I need him to be someone who sees me as a whole and valuable person outside of himself. And I know that can be hard because in a lot of the stories, even biblically, women are seen in a position of less than or suffrage or self-sacrificing and things like that. So a lot of times men don't see us as valuable outside of whatever we can do for them, right? I think a lot of times one good clue that you can tell regarding whether or not a man sees you as valuable outside of his usefulness is to flat out ask him, so what is it you see in me? Or, what is it you feel about me? I kid you not, I have literally been with people because, once upon a time, I was that woman trying to date a man for his potential, trying to help him elevate and see, how we could do this thing together and all of that jazz. But I have literally heard men say things like, you was a ride or die. You was down for me when whatever. Do you see how that has really nothing to do with me? It has nothing to do with the value that I come in to a relationship with seeing me as a whole and complete person who can add to his life. Instead, it's more like I'm a crutch. I just think too, when men start talking about that ride or die mentality, you was down with me when I was down or whatever, you didn't count me out when I was down, you stuck it out with, when they start talking about things like that, it's almost as if there's this grooming or conditioning that's happening. You hear so many times that, women are to be the ride or die. And I don't know what is the equivalent of that for a man? Because I don't usually hear that. That's not in the songs. So what are we talking about here? No, and let's not get this misunderstood. There is a thing of being together for better or for worse, but let's not plan on the worst. Let's not expect that it's going to be bad times and she's just going to keep sticking it out with me no matter what the bad times. Because I tell you what, I feel like a lot of times when they're saying that she was my ride or die, it's usually behind an action that he should have known better than to do in the first place. But after he did that thing, whatever he should have known better than to do, we as women, we stuck it out and now we're getting our praise. That conditioning of suffrage, right? It's one thing when things happen in life that are not avoidable. People get laid off. Yeah, I'm going to support my husband through that. People pass away and there's that pain and he may feel down. I'm going to try to uplift him. But this idea that I'm sticking through and by his side through cheating, through disrespect, disregard, and all, no, those things just should not even be happening. And then it goes right back up to my G. Why are these things even happening anyway? Because if you understand the spirit of how things are, if nothing else, I mean, let's even move it away from the God thing. Didn't you learn back in kindergarten that you treat somebody the way you want to be treated? Would you want me cheating on you? Would you want that for yourself? You know, that's just like a fundamental thing. So no, yeah, I need him to have the emotional maturity. So the next thing I need is I need a man who's accomplished some things on his own. And I know this is another one of those dicey topics right now because a lot of men are saying, oh, these women want somebody who's already established. They don't want to build with the brother, you know, all of that. And the reality is, I don't even know where that's coming from because I literally do not know of one woman who's been in a relationship who hasn't been willing to build with one. I know I definitely have. So that is always strange when I hear that. I'm thinking either these men have never been in a relationship before or they have not appreciated the women who were building with them. But anyway, I can definitely say I've been someone to work with a man like to the nth degree. One case I'm thinking of is I was in a relationship with someone and you know we had hit a good stride and things like that. I think I wanted to say I was going to school at this time. And so I remember as I'm going back to school, he started kind of making some rumblings about, you know, you're doing all this, going to school. And I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, wow, really? Okay, I can get behind that. You know, what type of businesses have you thought about doing? I don't know. You know, I'm still kind of figuring that out. I'm doing, you know, I'm thinking about it. And so at the time, he had a friend with a few rental properties, and some weekends, every other weekend or so, once, twice a month, he would help his friend mow the lawns for those rental properties. So I was kind of like, you know what, babe, you got a pickup truck, a decent lawnmower. You could even get a better lawnmower. And he even at that time had a brother who, you know, was struggling to find his way with regard to employment and stuff like that. And I was like, you already got one employee. And if your friend really can't handle all that yard work by himself, you already got one customer. Put that together. We live in the Midwest, and I remember saying, oh, you could put a plow on the front and see about getting some contracts. We were in an area where there was a lot of new builds being put up. So I'm like, hey, like this could be a thing. I started looking on Craigslist at the time. I'm looking for lawn equipment, things like that, trying to figure it out. I was like, yeah, this is a low-cost startup, and you got kind of a foot in the door. This is definitely something you have experience with. And as I'm doing all this grinding, plus going to school, grinding on my own, plus going to work and all that, I'm coming up with all these ideas, and I'm like, wait a minute, what about this? How about that? And I realized at one point that he's pretty much just kind of shooting down all the stuff that I came up with for one barely valid reason or another not so valid reason. He's just like, no. So finally I was like, okay, help me to understand. What is it you actually want to do? And he was like, oh, you know, I think I want to open up a club. Ain't got near a piece of education on restaurant management. Neither he nor I knew anything about that. And it was kind of like, that's a huge startup. What did I get out of that? I got an understanding that all he had was pretty much an idea, a pipe dream really, because he hadn't done anything to make sure that his ideas came to fruition. He hadn't gone to school, studied, learned, you know, all of the things that it takes to make that a reality were not the things he had yet accomplished. I mean, And you know what else I can admit to? I can admit that during this time of me coming up with all these ideas that he's shooting down and all of that, my attraction for him truly began to diminish. As I would see him talk about a thing but not really take steps toward it, that's not attractive for me. It was a flat out turnoff, in fact. So yeah, he's absolutely going to have some accomplishments in order to even keep that attraction and that feel good. You need the feels when you're in a relationship. I need to feel proud of him and, you know, feel like he's an honorable person. The last thing, the R for me, is reverence. I need someone that I can respect and regard and see him as my ruler and things like that, because I know submission gets a bad rep and things like that. But let me just tell you, the way that I define submission, like I said, you can't have two heads of a household. It's just a matter of knowing that someone has to be in charge. Someone has to make the final decision. And let me tell you, I have the kind of job where every single day, every single hour, I am making multiple decisions. I'm a teacher, by the way. I don't know for those of you who don't know that. But I may have one child over here who has trouble speaking up or advocating for themselves. I need to pour into that child in one way that teaches them that, hey, if you don't express what you're thinking, there's no way anyone's going to know. There's no way people are going to have any regard for your feelings. So I need you to, raise your hand, or if you don't raise your hand, I'm going to call on you anyway, and I need you to have an answer. So there's a certain way I have for that child. And over here, I may have another child who overtalks other children all of the time. I definitely don't want to diminish that personality, but I need them to understand that, hey, when you do that, you're making others feel invisible and you're losing out on an opportunity to learn from them. If you're the one who's doing all the talking, like even as an adult, I never want to be the smartest person in a room. I never want to be the one who's doing all of the talking, because what am I learning? What am I gaining? Nothing. I'm too busy just going, right? And so that's part of my job. The decisions of what am I going to teach? What am I going to eliminate? How does this connect with tons of decisions I'm making? So honestly, by the time I come home, I don't want to make another decision. I will welcome the opportunity to have someone making those decisions for me. That is not a problem. But again, as I see submission, it's just that understanding that at the end of the day, when a decision has to be made, someone has to make it. Yes, I give my opinions because, again, I ain't no dumb chick. I am intelligent. I am intuitive. I can see things. I've gleaned experiences and knowledge from my past that's going to help me with the future. And if I'm with a smart man, he's going to want to capitalize on that. He's going to want to hear me out. But at the end of the day, he's still going to need to make the final decision. So I know that's not very popular. I know a lot of people have a problem with submission, but honestly, I feel like if you've already got that man who is submissive to God, he's emotionally mature, he's got some accomplishments, he's been through some things as well, and he's a person I can now revere, I'm honest, I'm not going to have a problem with submitting to him. It's the people that lack those other things that, no, brother. So, yeah, anyway, that is all I've got for today. That is my gear, the GEAR, the 4 things that I need in order to submit to a man, or to honestly, just in the vetting process, I need those things. I need to see them before I'm even able to take a man seriously. We can go out, we can kick it, we can have fun. So sorry, it said my internal temperature on my camera got too high. So anyway, let me just wrap up before it shuts off again and say that those are the 4 things that I require in order to take a man seriously in the dating process. Let me know if I forgot anything or if there's more that you can add to that. I'd love to hear your opinions on it. But anyway, that's all I've got for now. Thank you again so much for watching. And if you've made it this far, please do all the YouTube-y things such as subscribe, like, share, and all of that. Don't forget to drop a comment below. And thank you again for stopping by. Take care. Let's see if I can get through and make a thumbnail. Why do I never remember that? Should I step back a little? I'm wearing jogging pants. Not too far.